The 97th Annual Academy Awards are this Sunday, March 2nd, and it's time for some last-minute Oscar predictions. I must admit, last year I was much more proactive at staying up to date on all the Best Picture nominees. This year, I have missed a couple of the Best Picture nominees. I think I've seen 7 or 8 of the 10, but we're just going to go category by category, and I'm just going to throw out my predictions. I'm recording this Friday night, February 28th, so I'm not sure if my predictions will line up exactly with my day of paper ballot, but we're just going to kind of go through and I'm going to throw out my guesses for right now. What I'm going to kind of do is I'm going to pick what I think will win, what the Academy will pick, and then I'll also give you what I would pick out of the nominees. But let's go ahead and get started. We're on the Oscars.org on their official website. I'm just going down the categories from the top. The first one they have listed is actor in a leading role. This one is going to be pretty competitive. So we have Adrien Brody in The Brutalist, Timothée Chalamet, Complete Unknown, Colman Domingo in Sing Sing, Ralph Fiennes in Conclave, and then Sebastian Stan in The Apprentice. This one's going to be interesting because, a lot of people like to go off of the other award shows, the SAG Awards, the Golden Globes, all the award shows. It's award season, and from what it seems like, Adrien Brody has won the most, so I think he's kind of the projected favorite. However, Timothée Chalamet did win the SAG Award, which kind of spices things up a bit. And then, personally, I don't think you should necessarily count out Ralph Fiennes either, but I do think he's kind of the third runner-up. I'm thinking that this will end up going to Adrien Brody in The Brutalist. I know there was the whole AI controversy, and there's been various stories about that, but I think he still sneaks in the win. But I could easily see Timothée Chalamet getting it as well, and that's who I would pick. If I was voting on this category, I would pick Timothée Chalamet for A Complete Unknown. I thought he did a great job portraying Bob Dylan and gave what I think is probably his best performance to date. And, he has some amazing performances. This is a pretty stacked category. You can't really go wrong. But yeah, I think Adrien Brody's going to take it. Moving on to the next category, we have actor in a supporting role. Now, this one is pretty much locked up. It's going to be Kieran Culkin. He's won every award at every major award show for this, and he seems like the clear front runner and favorite. He would also be my pick, so I'm totally content and happy with seeing Kieran Culkin take home this award. I think that'll be awesome for him. I'm really interested to see his speech because he's had just the most out-of-pocket speeches so far. Like with the previous category, I think there's some really strong contenders in here, like Jeremy Strong. I think Guy Pearce gave a great performance in The Brutalist, but this one's all but locked up. This is pretty much guaranteed to be Kieran Culkin. That would be quite the shock if something else happened. Now we move on to actress in a leading role. This one's kind of a toss-up as well. This one's not really guaranteed. I know the three favorites from everything I've been seeing, is Demi Moore for The Substance, Mikey Madsen for Anora, and then Fernanda Torres for I'm Still Here. I think that Demi Moore will end up winning the award. I think it's going to be a close call. I could see it going to any of those three, but I think Demi Moore will end up taking it, and I think she's totally deserving as well. If I was to pick, it would be between Demi Moore and Mikey Madsen for me, but I would probably pick Demi Moore as well. Actress in a supporting role. I think this one will be Zoe Saldana. I know there's been a bunch of controversy surrounding Emilia Perez, and I do think that's going to affect a lot of the awards that it's nominated for. However, I don't think that this will be one of them. I do think this is one of the awards that movie will win for. Zoe Saldana has been a pretty good frontrunner in this category for most of the awards. I know Monica Barbaro and Isabella Rossellini are both kind of dark horses in this category, but ultimately I think it's going to go to Zoe Saldana. I have not seen Emilia Perez. It's one of the three Best Picture nominees. I have not seen it this time. And so if I was picking in this category, I would actually pick Felicity Jones. I thought she gave a really powerful performance in The Brutalist, and so that's who I would pick. I also really like Zoe Saldana as an actress just in general, so I'd be happy to see her win it. All right, moving on to animated feature film. This one we have Flow, Inside Out 2, Memoir of a Snell, Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, and The Wild Robot. I think the winner of this category will be The Wild Robot. I think the two frontrunners are The Wild Robot or maybe Flow. I would also say don't count out Disney on this one with Inside Out 2. Disney just kind of has that history in the animation category, and a lot of people might just blindly vote for Disney. Not that Inside Out 2 isn't deserving, because it was one of my favorite films of the year, but I just know that voters just quickly think to vote for Disney because it's animation. I think there is an actual small chance that Inside Out 2 takes it, but I'm pretty sure The Wild Robot will win this. My personal pick, if I had to pick out of these ones, would be Inside Out 2. I actually loved that movie. I couldn't believe it was as good as it was. But Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul is just pure joy, though I don't think it has any sort of chance at winning. Wild Robot was great too, though. All right, animated short film. This one, I've got to be honest, I haven't seen any of them. And there's usually not like a lot of indications out there of what will win in some of these categories, like animated short film. I'm gonna go with Wander to Wonder, just because it has a fun name, and I feel like that's the one that I've heard the most about, so we'll go with that one. Now it's time for cinematography. This is a category that's really near and dear to me. I love seeing who takes the Oscar for this, and there are several in this category that are really hard for me to decide between for my personal vote. What I think is going to win is The Brutalist, which I think is totally deserving. That's one of the three that I would be in full support of winning. Very effective and just more classical in its approach. And my personal pick, it's really hard. Like I said, Brutalist is up there for me, but ultimately, I would be going between Dune Part 2 or Nosferatu. I'm just such a fan of Greg Fraser. After he did The Batman, I've followed his work very closely, and Dune is just so gorgeous, and it's one of those movies where it's like every frame's a painting. So I would give it to Dune Part 2. So yeah, I think Brutalist will win. Dune Part 2 would be my pick. Costume design, I think this one will go probably, I assume, between Conclave or Wicked. I think I'm going to go with Wicked, though, because I feel like these are the categories where that movie is going to excel. My personal pick, though, would be Nosferatu. All right, now time for directing, my favorite category of the night. This one's going to be really interesting because I don't think that there's like a clear frontrunner. It's the same with Best Picture, and I'll get to that later, but this is one of those years where there's some of these, higher categories where I don't think that there's just a clear favorite. Like last year we had Oppenheimer, and that was kind of the clear projected favorite for most of the categories it was in. But this year's a little more sporadic. But I do think that this is between Sean Baker for Anora and Brady Corbet for The Brutalist. I think it's pronounced Brady Corbet. Correct me if I'm wrong. Ultimately, I think it's between those two. I think most people are leaning toward Anora right now and Sean Baker. So I'm going to predict that that's what the Academy will go with. I think they're going to go with Sean Baker and Anora because I think also, spoilers for later when I get to Best Picture, I think Anora is going to be what ends up winning Best Picture. But if I was personally picking in this category, I would give it to Brady Corbet for The Brutalist. Documentary feature film. Another category I'm remiss to say I haven't seen any of these. I think the two frontrunners are No Other Land and Sugarcane from what I've been hearing. I'm going to go ahead and predict No Other Land, but honestly, anyone's guess is as good as mine on this one. Same thing for documentary short film. I haven't seen any of these. I'm going to go with Death by Numbers. I hope sometime after the award show I'm able to get to watching some of these. Time for film editing. We have Anora, The Brutalist, Conclave, Emilia Perez, and Wicked. I'm going to go with Conclave. I really liked the way that movie was edited. Had a really great flow to it. That's probably also what I would pick for this category as my personal pick, although both The Brutalist and Anora would also be great options. International feature film. This one's going to be really interesting because the original thought was that Emilia Perez was going to be the front runner for this. And I do still think that there's a chance of that happening. However, after all the controversy over the last couple months, I'm thinking that I'm Still Here ends up taking it. Makeup and hairstyling. This is one where I think it is going to be between Wicked and The Substance. From everything I've seen, I feel like A Different Man would be a great pick for this as well. I'm going to guess that the Academy Awards will pick The Substance. My personal pick in this category, though, would be Nosferatu. Time for music / original score. We have The Brutalist, Conclave, Emilia Perez, Wicked, and The Wild Robot. The biggest tragedy of this category is that there's no Dune Part 2. I haven't looked into it fully, but I still don't understand what the reasoning was as to why that couldn't be nominated, especially considering my favorite film trilogy of all time, The Lord of the Rings. Howard Shore was nominated and won for Fellowship of the Ring and Return of the King. Return of the King uses themes from Fellowship and Two Towers. So I don't understand how Dune Part 2 couldn't have been nominated for this because it uses some of the same music. Like that's kind of how it works for sequels, is, you know, you take those themes and you kind of evolve them with the narrative and come up with new compositions as well. I don't know. That's besides the point though. It's not nominated here, unfortunately. But going with the nominees we do have, my assumption is that The Brutalist will win. That's what the Academy will pick. It's also what I would personally pick. The Brutalist's soundtrack is fantastic. Definitely in my top 3 of the year, only behind Dune Part 2. And the other missing nominee that was completely shocking to me, which is Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross's score for Challengers, which, man, again, I don't know how Challengers didn't get a single nomination. Editing, it wasn't nominated for editing. Score, that's just crazy to me. I did love The Brutalist's score, so happy that one's on here, and that's what I think will win and what I would want to win. Time for music / original song. Honestly, this is one of the few years where I don't know like any of these songs nominated for original song, which is really sad because it's normally a category that I'm really interested in. I'm going to assume though, it sounds like El Mal from Emilia Perez is kind of the front runner and favorite, so I'm going to assume that that's going to win. All right, Best Picture's up next, but we're going to skip that. We're going to go toward the next categories and I'll end on Best Picture. Production design: The Brutalist, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Nosferatu, and Wicked. This is a category where, for my personal pick, I would definitely pick Nosferatu. The production design on that was next level. Just some of my favorite atmosphere and ambiance you can get. But I think that Wicked will win this. That's what I am predicting the Academy will choose. Live action short film. This is another one, unfortunately. I haven't seen any of these. I'm going to guess The Last Ranger, just because that sounds like a cool name. I'll get to them after the show, though. Now we go to sound. We have A Complete Unknown, Dune Part 2, Emilia Perez, Wicked, and The Wild Robot. Dune Part 2, that's my pick. That's also what I think the Academy will pick. This is a category it absolutely should win in. Being in the theater, experiencing this movie in IMAX was probably like a top 10 theater experience for me of all time. Next up, we have visual effects. We got some fun ones in this category: Alien Romulus, Better Man, Dune Part 2, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and Wicked. I'm going to go with Dune Part 2 again. I think the Academy will pick that one, and it's what I would pick. All right, now it's time for writing, adapted screenplay. I think that Conclave will take this one, and it's also what I would personally pick in this category. This one I'm guessing Anora will win, which I'm totally fine with. Honestly, any of the nominees in this category, I would be totally happy with winning. The only one I haven't seen is September 5. And if I had to pick personally, I would probably pick either Anora or The Brutalist, although I also loved Real Pain in the Substance, so this one's a really hard one for me to pick my personal choice. But I'll say Anora. Some really great comedic writing in that. All right, that leaves us with our final category, which is Best Picture. The 10 nominees this year are Anora, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Emilia Perez, I'm Still Here, Nickel Boys, The Substance, and Wicked. Like I was saying earlier, I really think that this year doesn't have a clear frontrunner, and I do think it's going to be a fun surprise to see whatever wins, because as of right now, the projected frontrunner and winner is Anora, which is what I'm going to predict as well, purely based on that, because I don't have a strong feeling one way or another about what will win in this category this year. If I had to narrow it down, I think it's going to be between Anora, The Brutalist, and Conclave. I could see any of those 3 winning. My personal pick in this category is probably pretty obvious based on what I've been saying throughout this episode, but I would pick Dune Part 2. To me, it's such a tragedy that that film seems like it's just been completely forgotten about by Academy voters. To me, this should be a frontrunner for Best Picture, and I just really hope that Denis Villeneuve gets his Oscar at some point. It's a similar situation now to like how it was with Christopher Nolan last year. It was so awesome to finally see Nolan get that award after so many years of killing it. I think Denis Villeneuve is the next huge auteur name out there that needs to get Best Director or a Best Picture win. And my hope is that with Dune, we see a similar situation to Lord of the Rings, where I'm hoping that when Dune Messiah comes out, that it will get its due and win a bunch of awards. And it's looked at as almost a win for the whole series itself, for the whole trilogy. Because that's definitely what happened with Return of the King. You know, Return of the King is my favorite film of all time. So I think it was 100% deserving of all the awards it won. But I think it was also a situation where voters were looking at awarding the franchise itself, the whole trilogy, just from what a spectacle it was. And so I'm kind of hoping we get a similar situation with Dune Messiah, assuming it's good, which, you know, come on. You know, if Denny's taking the reins and finishing off the victory lap. But that wraps up my Oscar predictions for the 2025 97th Annual Academy Awards. It's going to be great seeing Conan O'Brien host it. But let me know your predictions in the comments below. And after the show, let me know how many you got correct out of all the categories. And I thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time. Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed this episode of Tales from the Cinema. I plan to do more content like this, so please consider subscribing, liking, and sharing. It would be much appreciated. Thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see you next time.